Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Download. We've got
Tim.
Lots of things to talk and discuss this week. Let's start with some introductions, because I'm going to go to you first, Brandon, because you're next on my squares, celebrity squares.
I'm a celebrity now. You guys must have saw my post with Nick about being an extra in Back to the Future or something. My biggest claim to fame.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm Brandon Lee, the founder of Funnel Amplified, and get to call these clowns my partners. I mean, these awesome, wisdom-filled guys my partners.
Mr. Garrison.
Hey, everybody. Mike Garrison. I am Captain Slow Mood. Lots of easy listening today, and I am going to make sure I don't talk about stuff I'm not supposed to talk about.
Lenwood.
All right, I'm Lenwood Ross. I'm the founder and CEO of Accelerate.
Eric.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Doyle. I'm the founder of Crux, and we are partnered with DLA Ignite and this band of brothers right here.
Adam.
I'm Adam. I'm Tim's business partner, co-founder of DLA Ignite, and proud partner of all of these people on the call.
Hey, what did we all eat or drink this morning? Like everybody's just like
mellow.
Nice and mellow. Nice and mellow.
Yellow.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Maybe this is the chilled one.
Yeah. So, well, I don't know, because what we're going to talk about, first thing we're going to talk about is personal content on LinkedIn. So I don't know if there's any LinkedIn police actually listening in right now, but we are going to talk about personal content. So
it's not Facebook, you know.
Before we start all that serious stuff, it's like the most important thing in our digital lives happened this week. In anyone's digital lives. James T. Kirk went into space.
Yeah. Amazing.
That I was really surprised to hear that he is 90 years old.
90.
Yeah. He at 90.
He boldly went where some people recently went last week, but that doesn't matter. It's about the fact that he was there. That's just absolutely incredible, right? 90 years old.
Do you think as they were just breaking through the atmosphere, do you think he said, warp drive at your discretion?
Captain's log. They would have been, go on, William. Go on, William.
We need more power.
We need more power. Yeah, all those things. You'd just be asking him to say all those things as you were in that capsule, right? Just phenomenal, just great. Sorry, Tim, but that was a particularly big thing in our house because I'm married to a complete Trekkie, but she's a generations Trekkie. Generations. Jean-Luc Picard. Yeah, she's a Jean-Luc Picard.
Do you say to her, use the Force, Sarah?
She just laughs because Star Trek's irrelevant to her. Yeah, live long and prospect.
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prospect. That should be our strapline, really, shouldn't it?
Yeah, live long and prospect. Yeah, totally.
There's a blog in that.
There's a blog in that.
There is a blog in that.
Sorry, Timothy. Sorry for hijacking that.
You're welcome. What was the police person he played?
TJ Hooker.
Yeah.
TJ Hooker.
Why do we all gig?
With Heather Locklear. Heather Locklear was on TJ Hooker.
I love that. That we all anchor into things from our childhood. Because that was a Sunday night.
Was so important.
Sunday night was TJ Hooker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually
scene.
TJ Hooker.
And scene.
Oh God, help me.
Star Trek. Going back to Star Trek for just a second, that is actually the first program that I remember watching from my child. Like when I think back to my childhood, my earliest memory is actually watching Star Trek.
Speed Racer.
My grandfather used to make us watch 70s Doctor Who, which terrified me. And he would be like, now that your mum and dad have gone out for the night, let's all sit down and watch Quatermass reruns.
That's right. You could. I bet there's a lot of people on here that also watched. Was it Benny Hill?
Oh yes,
yeah.
That was bad for kids.
Faulty
Hey,
Towers. My favorite.
Speaking of bad for kids, does anybody remember HR Puffin stuff?
Look, you just earwormed me, you evil man. HR puffing stuff.
That's
I
right.
think that was one American thing that didn't make it over.
Oh well, so it generated in probably the mid '60s on several acid trips, and then it morphed into a early education show that I used to watch before like kindergarten. And
so actually it was a live show with kids and big puppets and stuff.
Oh, and lots of
was
like
it like
rainbows
before
and what's that?
Big Bird?
Sesame Street.
It was around, yeah, it was around the beginning time of Big Bird too.
Well, the thing I'm looking at just now says 1969 opening and closing theme. So it was this kind of 60s, late 60s thing.
Oh yeah, that's what
Cool.
I said. It probably came out of acid trips in the mid '60s of people,
Right.
And then they said we should turn this into a kids program.
It's like Magic Roundabout over here.
Venture
Flying.
I remember Saturday mornings in the school holidays, I would get down and put the TV on and then go in and make a sandwich until the TV warmed up, and come in and which of the 3 channels am I going to watch? And I remember that Channel 3 on a Saturday morning, it was Champion the Wonder Horse, which I absolutely adored. There was Skippy the kangaroo.
Do you remember
He's
the
in the well.
aeronauts?
Yes, that's really great. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hong
That was
Kong
about
Fooey.
French fighter
Hong
pilots.
Kong
It was great.
Hong Kong Fooey. The
Yeah.
mild man,
Could it be
Henry
Henry
the
the
mild mannered janitor.
Could be.
Could be.
Wow.
What else? Who were the crazy 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana that
Banana
drove around?
Banana Splits.
Banana splits, yeah, all that stuff. Yeah, crazy. Is this what you had in mind, Tim? Is this what you had in mind?
Yeah, I thought it'd be good to talk about children's programs.
Well, it does sort of tie into personal content, right? Because what
really
we're doing
does.
is,
Does.
we're talking about these things that influence us as children, and that also helps us connect with other people, right?
Does.
Anyway.
Hey, I think it's a great segment into what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, should we do personal content on LinkedIn?
Yes.
Sure.
Why?
In balance, as part of an overall plan, and it should be measured and it should be appropriate. And I mean that in a good sense. Definitely yes, but it should be part of a plan, and it should be part of an overall plan to make sure that we don't end up just becoming the people that just post pictures of our toast that morning and here's my latest socks that I'm wearing and lose
what was
all
the
relevance.
Puffin, Brandon, what was the Puffin?
HR Puffin stuff.
HR Puffin, yeah.
It is exact great analogy to the sales industry right now. Just give me until we're done and I'll write an article on it.
Okay.
But I say that because that's what we talk about, right? There's nothing wrong with good personal posts, especially when we are able to use it to share a story about something valuable. And I appreciate Robert. Robert texted me a little while ago and said, "Stop being so serious and smile." I was sharing us onto LinkedIn, so sorry if I look so serious and my resting dick face was coming out.
So to answer your from a personal perspective, personalized, is your question, because Oliver, as this whole story has morphed, what's become very relevant to a lot of us is that all of our content should be humanized, all of it, whether we're talking about something deeply technical, deeply commercial, deeply philosophical, deeply personal, whatever it might be, as long as it has that vein of humanized throughout it all. So whether we're writing about something that's so crucial to our business or something that we just want to share or something, as long as it's got that humanized vein through it, it's going to be superior to most of the content that's just coming out of the sort of corporate halls. However, the sharing that personal content, which some people would say, and it used to rub me up the wrong way, but when I see people saying, I don't usually put posts up like this, but I thought I would share a picture of my wife and I because it's our anniversary, and it's got 450 likes. And you look at their previous content, which has got 5. I don't normally, so I always go into posts like that and say, please do more of this. Please do more of this. This is great. This is great, but in balance, as part of your overall content mix.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, and it goes back to the bestseller I wrote, Truth or Illusion, Busting Networking's Biggest Miss. You know, one of the big questions we had was, referrals are the safest way to grow your business? And the answer was an emphatic no. And it's the same thing with personal posts on social. When you're looking to grow your network and deliver revenue with any kind of predictability, your personal posts not only have to be balanced, like Eric said, they can't be the only thing you share, but they better be credible. They shouldn't just be humanized. They should be directly, authentically personalized to your expression of humanity, because I've already seen it in my brief time, you know, really being intentional on social, which is what, 6 months, Tim, right? In my brief time, I have seen people crash and burn trying to put out personal posts that aren't really who they are. And when you get called out on that on social and people notice, it's bad. And so I think a lot of people are worried about sharing personally because they don't want to be inauthentic and they don't want to be called out.
Without mentioning names, Mike, when you say someone, give us an example of where someone shared something which
you see it all the time in financial services. You see it all the time in professional services. People trying to share. It's basically, I call it the adversity games, where they're trying to basically talk about how their life is harder than other people, you know, and like, you know, and like, if you're going to share something that's a monumental piece of adversity, I think you should really be careful. Like, I've shared some really tough stuff. But that's because, like, I have walked paths that, quite frankly, nobody on this call has. I've walked paths that are really dark and almost committed suicide and lost all my businesses. And when I shared that stuff, I never shared that stuff before Tim and Adam on the social selling course were like, hey, man, or to quote Adam, mate, you got to share that stuff, right? I never even considered doing it because, one, it was hard, and two, I couldn't connect that it could help other people. But I am having crazily deep and powerful conversations with important people in the financial services field. It hasn't resulted in business yet. And partially that's because it started so personal. Like, this is I don't know if you guys have got some advice on that, but like, I've connected with people far deeper, far faster than I ever did analog. And I'm having to be a little cautious because some of these people are on national news. Like, I mean, but we're connected because of how incredibly hard caring for your children for your entire lifetime, protecting them from being raped and other things like that is, you know? And I just want to encourage people, like, don't go there to try and be more personal. Because here's the thing, like, Eric, I love that post you did where you were walking around in the woods when you went camping. And like, some people were like, oh, that's not professional. I'm like, God, that was one of my favorite posts. It was like, you know, like, I was like, shit, I could do that.
It's funny because some people were like, yeah, that's, I mean, it's bizarre. That's not professional. I was talking about how it struck me that going camping takes you back to base human, and you've really got to think about resources. Like, we have to plan things, like we don't have endless supply of water or gas or whatever. And it made me think about our businesses and how we don't have endless. What did you say?
Where the toilet is.
Where the toilet is. Yeah, things like that. So everything takes a little bit more planning. But the fact is, as Mike rightly says, this whole thing about, if I put out a lovely post today about how much I absolutely love project management, I absolutely love it. And even if I humanize it and write about project management, it's likely that the only people that are going to lean into that are people who are, one, into project management, one, interested in the concept of talking about project management and feel as if they've got a connection to project management. So I've instantly put filters on that and can only expect that people that are going to be interested in the topic or the way I've written it are probably going to engage. If I write a piece of personal content which has no filters on it, then more of my network can step forward and go, I can resonate with that. So if we include personalized content, what does it do to the overall psychological mix? If I produce regular content which is based around the things that I want to be famous for, then I'm, and if that's all I do, I'm just going to bore the pants off people with technical stuff and jargon. So if I do that, and I also share things that are interesting, and then I also put out personal content that shows you that I've got the same, not only am I technical specialist in what I do, not only am I interested in sharing other people's knowledge and wisdom and experience, but I've got the same hopes, fears, desires, and ambitions as you as an individual, then it allows you to see that there's a really, really nice mix here.
Hey, Eric.
I think there's also the thing about what Mike said about it having to be your story.
Yeah.
So I know that there are epidemics of problems out there. So, mental health has been swept under the carpet, or mental health issues rather, have been swept under the carpet for a long time because people have seen it as a sign of weakness. But it seems that 2/3 of the posts that I see are people that are bemoaning the fact that they're suffering at the moment. And actually, I feel that in some instances, and I think further to your point, Mike, it's pretty obvious most of the time. In some instances, people are genuinely suffering and they're pouring out their heart. And in other instances, people are saying, well, Eric spoke about this problem and he got 400 likes and 25,000 views. So actually, it's my turn to speak about this problem. And I think that a lot of people see some of these things. I'll hitch my wagon to that particular cause, and then I will get some extra traction. And I think what's really interesting is that human beings are very good at sniffing out insincerity.
Oh yes,
and there are some things that clearly you should not be talking about. Further to your point, Eric, about filtering stuff, if you want to talk about religion, or if you want to talk about politics, or if you want to talk about addiction, these have nothing to do with logic. They have to do with belief system. And the problem with belief system is it doesn't matter how much I prove something to you, I cannot change your view of the world. So consequently, if I talk about politics and I'm very left-wing and you're very right-wing, well, actually, what I've done is I've immediately cut the audience to whom I'm attractive in half. So even though these things may be things that we're very passionate about and mean a lot to us, we generally have to not air those on this kind of network, because actually I can still be friends with somebody who has different religious or political beliefs to me. But what I don't want to do is talk about that, because if I do talk about it, it will end up in a punch-up, because these are things that run deep and people are very passionate about and very invested in, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Invested.
It's too bad. It's too bad that this is going to get philosophical. It's too bad that more people don't view the world that way. And what I mean by that is I can be friends. I can have a relationship with someone who disagrees with me on these fundamental issues, because it's actually through having relationships on that are based on other things that we then can sometimes come around, not necessarily on LinkedIn, but in other areas, we can come around and then begin to see that other person's perspective and have our views reshaped, or not.
I think there are some things, if you are a Nazi or you are a racist, actually, I don't want to have any engagement with you. And I don't care what platform it's on, because actually, fundamentally, there are elements of you that are not just unattractive, but actually horrible, vile to me. So I don't want anything to do with that. But the fact that you've got a different perspective on things, politically or ideologically, actually, I can live with that. That's fine.
What's beautiful about people with vile and horrible viewpoints? They typically are unable to avoid sharing how.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and so we don't need to mention names of popular figures in the last 5 years that, but you can look and you can see it. But the thing I wanted to key off of what Lenwood said is one of my favorite books is It Doesn't Hurt to Ask by Trey Gowdy. And he says in there, he talks about a personal transformation that he had to go through on how he looked at racism in America based upon he's a white guy, with his friendship with Tim Scott, who's the black senator from South Carolina. They said, Tim, well, you don't have any problems being a black guy, do you, with driving? And Tim's like, I got stopped like last week. I had my U.S.
So can I just interject and move things back towards LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Natalie's made a really interesting comment, which if you just sit down and read it, I think you'll find it really interesting.
I'll tell you, as a former executive director with BNI, as an executive board member of that organization, looking at referral groups, this is what people don't seem to understand. People don't seem to understand that this is not advertising or broadcasting. LinkedIn is a networking social platform. And part of networking is not just your 60-second presentation about what you want to get paid for. It's listening to the other people. It's showing up and helping them, right? And that's the connection.
Yeah, I think.
Is there an extension to that comment?
If you need to read it in the chat, that's all I can present up on the thing.
Right, I've got you. Okay, sorry.
I think from what we read there, I think Natalie's bringing up a really good point. But one area where I slightly disagree with it. Overall, I agree with it though. Is I think people have always craved that personal connection. It was just through COVID, it became much more relevant. And because they didn't have, all these different channels of live events and things, they started using LinkedIn. However, what we do know about LinkedIn, I believe, is that if everybody had been using it just like they used it, they have offline or face-to-face conversations, it would have worked exactly the same. It's just that the pandemic kind of brought it out into more people using it more personally out of, a desperation, if you will. But I think everything that we've been talking about highlights a thing that I talk about a lot with our customers, which is, and I had a guest that we recorded on my podcast this week that'll come out in a while, but he works for an accounting firm. He's a partner in an accounting firm. Loves Star Trek, has video games in his background. I paint the picture. He's a brilliant thinker. And he does an amazing job on social media. And he says the main reason is he spent a lot of time figuring out his why and creating his plan all the way around who he is and who he wanted to be on social media. So it had nothing to do with his personality, what he did for work, his need for things. He just had a plan. And I think a lot of people are posting stuff that are more personal, mental health or whatever, out of desperation. It's when you start getting that plan in place that it becomes extremely beneficial to your goals. And until then, it's just random stuff, mimicking people because you see something that they've done, but they don't see, it's like the iceberg, right? They see the top part, but they don't see what's underneath it.
Yeah, I just connected to somebody and his response back was basically a list of his products and services.
Yeah.
No. Do you not want to hear that?
I agree with Brandon on the definitely on the plan thing, but I want to actually turn it back more to what I don't remember what her name was, but it was interesting because in her statement, right, she's actually separating communicating in person and what happens on social media. And I think therein lies the problem, which is there's this belief that you can't develop a personal connection with people through social media, right? It doesn't have to be only in person where we can connect with people. And I think when you combine like the ability, right? Because just as an example, I've been to London one time. Okay. And it was maybe 20 years ago. So if my only ability to connect with people who are from London or anywhere else in Europe was when I saw them in person, it would be very difficult for me to form a connection with someone over there. So my point is that social media is actually a new evolution of communication, that we can communicate and develop personal relationships through this vehicle. And it doesn't have to stop there. It can be that we move to phone and we plan to meet up in person at some event, later. Maybe now I have more reason to go to that in-person event because I'm going to know even more people. So, digital that's I guess the big point that I'd like to make is that people really need both skills and a plan. They need to learn how to use this new communication medium, because it's not as easy as like a phone is all I have to do is put it up to my ear and talk to the person, right? We've got to do a few more things on social media in order to make it all work.
And quite often, I mean, we talk about how sales people at the moment are often in a situation where what happens is that someone says, there's been someone come to our website, can you give them a call and ask them what they want? Whereas, always through my life, it's been about prospecting. You have to go out and form relationships with people fast. And in a way, while I would have done that face-to-face 20 years ago, now I can do that at scale by using social media.
Yeah.
Right, conversation. Isn't it?
The only thing I would add to this whole thing is I think people get distracted by these fake concepts of perfection. And so can you develop deeper relationships in person? Maybe, right? But you can develop more relationships and potentially deeper relationships at scale only through social, because it takes a lot of time and resources to get in front of people. Like, look at the organizations that you guys on the panel are working on helping transform, and look at what's happening with how they use time and prospecting now that they understand how to scale relationship development.
I would just like to say, Tim, have we got terms and conditions for this particular platform? Because I'm reading all the comments down the side here, and I think to myself, we could just zip them up and put them in a book. It'd be brilliant, be a bestseller. Because so many people have said incredibly insightful and smart things, haven't they?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You mean in the comments?
Yeah, or clearly not on the screen. That goes.
See, when we publish this book, on the little foreword, can we just have Gary Stockton's statement there? Just as the little, if you're yourself at work and bring your whole self to work, you should be able to bring your whole self to social media. That's it. That's the mic drop. Thanks for coming, everyone. That's the download for this.
I like Robert.
Point.
Yeah, I was going to say Robert Caruso.
It goes to the heart of why so many people are having problems, right? It's because they didn't bring their self to work. There was a mask at work. Right? Mask at work, mask on social media.
I love the I think I've told it before, but there's a famous guy. I grew up in oil and gas in the United Kingdom, and there's a very famous chap who ended up becoming the CEO of Wood, Bob Keeler. And Bob is a very, very sociable guy.
It's a Wood Group, isn't it?
Wood Group, yeah. So he took over as CEO of a 30,000 strong global energy organization, and he was the rabble rouser. He freaked out marketing and communications. So he used to follow him around the office with notepads, like saying, we can't do these things. So on a Friday morning, one of Bob's things that he liked to do in whatever office he was in around the world was to just duck out, make sure that his bodyguards of comms and marketing and corporate relations were like facing the other way, and then he would run out the hall, down the stairs, and just go and blend into the office. He would go and like sit in a coffee room and just talk to the guys, in coveralls that were in the yard or whatever. He'd go into an office, and he'd love to go into offices and say, "Hi, I'm Bob," and people would be like, "So, I'm Frank. So what?" And he'd be like, "Hey, listen, I don't want to make a big deal about it, but I'm the CEO here. Is there anything I can do to make your life easier?" And they're like, Yeah. These lights have been giving me eye trouble for years, and they say they're going to give us these fancy tubes that are like daylight, but they never do. Give me a sec. Give me a sec. Do, 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 do. John, Bob here. Lights, offices, strain. Get that sorted today. Thank you. Brilliant. Awesome. Anything else? Anything else? I would just fix it now. And he would do that all the time. And he would do it all the time. But he would also, he found he was struggling to really connect with people. And people were seeing the CEO badge before they were seeing Bob, who was actually a really personable guy, really friendly guy. But people were like, you could see people like would be chatting away, and then they'd turn around and Bob would walk in with a big smile, a bit like Michael Scott in The Office, and a cringe moment. And they would all just like, oh, here comes Bob Keeler. So he spoke to a psychologist friend of his, and he's like, I can't get past this. How am I going to do it? And he's like, well, it's really simple. Who do you trust in your life? And he's like, properly? Not very many people. Like proper trust, not very many. And he's like, of the ones that you do properly trust, what is it about that relationship you have with them that's different to other people? And he's like, I know them really well. And he's like, right, okay. By knowing them really well, what does that mean? He says, I really know things about their personal lives. I really understand what they're going through, and I understand what their lives are all about, their challenges and that they've had, and their high points and low points. And he said, right. Oh, and he had that thunk moment where he went, oh, I trust them because I know more about them. So I need to let people know more about me so that they'll let me know more about them, and we can build a bit of trust. So he started writing a blog every Friday, but it was a blog about coping with his sister's illness as a young boy. Corporate comms started going mental. It was a blog about the fact that he was having a really tough time with his wife at work. And he was putting this out to all of Wood. Corporate comms are going mental, absolutely mental. You can't put this out. We need to screen it. We need to get legal involved. And he's like, no, I'm just going to keep doing it. And I'm going to keep putting out these little things about how I'm just, I want to write a blog this Friday about the fact that I'm a total failure and I'm really bad at maths. And they're like, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. As soon as he started doing this, after a couple of months, he started to walk into offices and people were going, Bob, I read your thing about your sister. I hope you don't mind. Can we close the door for a second? Because I had exactly the same thing. And guess what's starting to happen? Trust is starting to build, relationships are starting to grow. People know more about him and know that he's able to share all of that. And that's okay. They can do that too. And it changed the whole dynamic in a 30,000 strong organization.
Hey,
Pretty
Eric,
much.
Yeah, that's awesome.
was that
Remind us, what was his name again?
Bob Keeler.
that was personal content?
He tells that story on. Yes, it was personal content. That was my little link. I had down tell the Bob Keeler story.
Can people find that at all? That story.
So that story he tells on his TED Talk. So if you put Bob Keeler TED Talk Glasgow, you'll find it. And he does a TED Talk with some. Bob's a great one. He doesn't ever use a presentation PowerPoint. He uses props. So he's got a little bee and he's got a frog with something in its mouth, and he does a TED Talk just with some props, and it's all about leadership and it's about trust, and it's a beautiful TED Talk. I'll see if I can find the link and pop it in the chat.
Could you share it? That would be brilliant.
I'll do it right now. Yeah, you guys carry on.
That's great, and what that really speaks to is compressing the organization, flattening the organization, not having this hierarchy where the CEO, you can't even see it. The CEO is so high you can't even see them, and then the people who are the first line touching the customers are down here, and there's so much distance between these folks that the CEO can't respond to anything that front line is finding out about what customers want because they're so far removed. So when you compress the organization and you get a flatter organization, you get people knowing more about each other and a better connection with the customers.
I love how Len would always go straight to the corporate culture. You're so good at that. That's really good. But here's what I'd like to bring. Everything that Eric said and that story is amazing and awesome. And breaking it down to, a lot of my customers that are, regional sales leaders, CROs of, $100 million companies. We're not even talking, massive Fortune 500 companies. But that story is a perfect analogy for everybody. You don't have to be the CEO sending that out to 30,000 people to build that trust and that connection. You can send it out to your LinkedIn network and you start building that trust and connection. And as we all know, what happens is You get people that come up and they go, now, what do you guys do? Oh my gosh. Or, hey, I've got this friend or my brother, whoever, who's struggling with leading their team around these things. I was telling Tim before we started, one of my students, someone in our course told me, he's like, oh my gosh, this is transforming my prehistoric ways of thinking about LinkedIn. Where were you 18 months ago? But this is going to completely change my future. And that's what we're talking about. All these stories, we can take them from offline. I think Robert maybe posted it in there, or Nick did. The line between digital world and the real world is thinner than ever. That happened. What Bob, I think, did was in an email to his team or internal communications. We've all seen it work everywhere, even in real life. Real life.
Yeah, great, Brandon. Yeah. That's a great story, Eric. Really good metaphor for what we're talking about.
Yeah, I've just found the link, and I'll put it up in the chat right now.
And I agree wholeheartedly with what Brandon's talking about, and it also connects to what Mike is talking about. Is sometimes because we're putting on masks at work, and I'm thinking more about, well, anyway, some of it's come off, right? Because of the pandemic, people have been able to see through to everything that's going on in the background of our lives. But, that person that comes in who's going through something that is really challenging and it's impacting who they are at work, but because they have to have that corporate mask, nobody knows. And, they're saying this guy's a jerk or this guy's but if we just share that thing that we're going about, that we might be going through, one, it might help us deal a little bit more so that we can better manage what's happening at work. But people will understand, hey, what's going on is not personal to me or some character flaw with this person, right? They're just going through something that's very challenging.
We've had another point in from Natalie. We need to, if you can just sit and read it for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the reason why people are saying they're not going to work, it's not because they're rejecting the office necessarily. They're rejecting the mask. They're rejecting this idea that I have to go back and be someone I'm not after having experienced 18 months of being like, a free person.
I think there's
that's really good. I'm sorry, Mike. Leonard, that at Linwood, I think that's the foundation of everything that people are experiencing or responding to the I don't want to go back. It has nothing to do with the physical office and everything to do with the emotional office. Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
I think my perspective on it, and I'd be really interested in what you guys think about this, but I think that people are aware that it's harder to hide than it used to be, right? We're seeing a lot more transparency. We're seeing emails from a decade ago cause a football coach to lose his job, right? We're seeing all this accountability. And I think that is, people are starting to finally understand that the mask is not safe, that the mask is now more dangerous, that we are in a new era of humanity, especially white collar, which is what we're talking about. We're in a new era of communication where actually authenticity, like really saying who you are, really being clear about what you're doing, and really thinking about what you say is more important than ever.
I think it's a really important point that you make, Lenwood, and I think it's really interesting because I've not seen anybody talk about, we talk about the Great Resignation or the Grand Quit or whatever you want to call it, and yeah, I wonder whether it isn't about the office. It's about the fact that when you went to work, you were possibly someone that you weren't. And here we are sitting in the office, and because we all know something about each other, because we've all now been in situations where the kids have walked in, or the cats walked in, or the dogs walked in, or the doorbell's gone, and they're all everyday things.
Tubing.
And
Hey, yesterday, just to illustrate that, I was on a training and there was, people from Canada, UK, Australia. And my daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, kind of kept coming in and looking at me, and I couldn't figure out what's going on. And I said, everybody, I know this is not very professional, but my daughter needs me for a second. Can I just get 30 seconds? And everyone's like, oh my gosh, of course, do it. And if, maybe they were just being courteous, but it seems like they felt like they were interrupting my life, even though I was being paid to train them. You know what I mean? It's just shifted where people care so much more about other people's entire lives more than just their business stuff.
But I think that this is the issue. So Robert put in the comments, I don't know about others, but digital is part of my real life every day, which I think it is. And I think it certainly is for us and some of the people that we know, where the two have merged and they are one and the same. So, I can have a video call with you sitting at your desk, or via a webcast like this, or whilst I'm sitting in the car, or whilst I'm walking the dog. But actually, I think for a lot of people, they still have these silos. I think that there's some bleeding from one to another, but I do think that there's more of that that's required. Because I don't know about you, but I've got a much better life now than I had 2 years ago. I spend less time on planes. I spend less time traveling. I mean, I miss the face-to-face interaction. I saw Tim face-to-face for the first time in 18 months this week.
horrible.
How did he look?
He looked pretty much like he does on calls, actually.
How did he smell? Because he hasn't left that chair in 2 years.
Yeah, that's a different story.
I'm still looking for the toilet, Eric.
Did he have that chair? Did he have that chair like kind of stuck through his back?
It's not really a
Was he
chair.
walking
It's a
around like
jumper. It's a jumper that he's got.
It's the collar. It's like 80s.
It's a collar.
No, but joking aside, aside from that and that kind of the interactions with people, I have more time to work and more time for life now. I'm able to have the same relationship with Tim and Eric and Lenwood. Tim I've met before, Eric and Lenwood I've never met. And I don't feel that I know you any less because I've not met you. And I think that part of this is the pandemic and the being forced into this has made us adopt this as a way of thinking. And I think that part of it has made it acceptable. So previously there is no possibility that a client would have ever thought of engaging us if we said we're never going to come and see you. Now it's perfectly common practice. We would pitch to a business remotely via this, which we never would have done before. And I think that that's really positive. But I still think some people are seeing this as a hiatus to normal life rather than normal life. And I think that they have to embrace this because it isn't going to change. We will get on planes again, but I won't be spending a third of my time in another country anymore. And I won't be spending 2 days a week in London anymore because actually there just is no need and no expectation that will be the case.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at networking because I think face-to-face is going to be critical in your local community like it never was before. But that big-time networking is going to be done at scale via strategic use of social like it's never been done before. And I think we've got a unique opportunity to have global businesses, no matter the size of your company, and still be a member of your local community.
I would agree with that. I want to just speak to in person. In every industry that has experienced digital disruption, I can't say every industry, but in many things that I'm thinking of off the top of my head, there's a period of disruption where things feel like they're falling apart. And then on the other end of that, there's more than what was there before. The music industry is a perfect example of oh my God, everything's going to hell because we can't sell CDs anymore. Now, there are more musicians with greater exposure than ever before, right? You don't have to sell 10 million records to make a living. You can have a community of 100,000 people that follow you. Anyway, my point is that with in person, I think what will happen is there'll be less wandering and trying to get in front of people, and more time spent getting deeper connections with people that we've already met virtually. That's how I kind of think that's going to transition, so that the in-person events will actually be much more effective for creating deeper relationships than they were before. How many people went someplace hoping that they'd meet someone, hoping that they'd catch them, and it didn't happen? Or, you know, they just didn't meet. You know, there's tons of people like that. And I think that if you can have a plan before for how you're going to start connecting with this person online, so that by the time you, even if you don't actually connect with them, but you just engage with them, so that by the time you go to that event and you're in front of them, they're like, oh, of course, I know you. I recognize you from this, that, or the other that was done online.
And I was able bringing it back to our original focus, our topic of the conversation, is all of that personal post, whether it's just purely, you know, hey, this is my view today. I had someone say, you know, I just stopped. I've never did anything personal before, and I stopped on my way home from a meeting and I took a picture of the beautiful mountains, and I said, this is my office view today. And he said, I got more comments, engagements, and personal messages from people over that post than anything I've done in the last few months. Right. And I think just getting it back, as Lenwood, you were saying, we are connected to people, but we have an opportunity to efficiently and consistently share bits of who we are, and trust that our audience, our buyers, and, you know, our community is going to engage with us, like us, accept us. And yes, there are going to be people out there that won't, because they think, you know, LinkedIn needs to be perfectly professional, or they don't agree with, you know, some elements of your life. You know, people that hate the fact that I'm a Manchester United fan, and others that, you know, I've got a really good friend who's a Liverpool fan, and we enjoy the banter. You know, it's all good. It's who we truly are. And the more we expose of that, I think just the better our networks become and the more opportunities come, no matter what industry you're in.
Yeah, but you know, LinkedIn is a professional networking site.
Right.
Regardless of what content you put on. Because if I professionally network, you know, if you said to me, Tim, I've got some tickets to go to Manchester United, would you like to come? I'd go. Of course I'd go.
I'd be wearing a Liverpool jersey.
I'd have to keep quiet. But
have to kick your ass.
But Eric said
while I was there, but I would love to go. And that's professional business networking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mental note, I know who not to invite on my next trip to Old Trafford.
Eric said something important. I think we'd all agree, is personal posts need to be balanced, and they need to be within a strategy. You need to have a plan, because there's, in my opinion, if you're just looking for likes and views, right, that's fine. But if you are deluding yourself into thinking that getting lots of likes and views is going to guarantee you revenue or EBITDA, right? I never can say that word, EBITDA, whatever. You're a fool, right?
It's Latin. It's Latin.
Because here's the thing. Eric, you had a really successful social post a while ago, right? Huge post. I had a big social post. Do you know what's different about how you and I handled after the post than 99% of people that do it? What was it?
We grew our connection base out of it. We followed up. We started conversations. We created relationships. We built trust. We had Zoom calls with people. We met people in the park. It all pulled through.
Yeah.
And
keep going though, Eric. Keep going. Be very direct so people understand that. You had Zoom calls, but you landed a contract.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
absolutely. And even if we haven't landed any of those yet, the seeds are sown for that commercial interaction. It's all just
Eric, you're being modest, because in the world of, if I can be corporate world that I lived in, everything was about C-level meetings. How do you get C-level meetings? And you got 6.
Yeah.
Off a personal post. Mm-hmm. 6 C-level meetings. Nobody can get that.
Well, you can, and every single thing about that, because we publicised that quite a lot, but that was absolutely genuine in every regard. So yes, you can, because I put out a thing about my son in lockdown and his birthday and stuff like that, and because it had no filters on it, because it was about the beach and a dog and a boy and a father and son relationship, it didn't have any. I'm a project manager. I'm a salesperson. I'm interested in this. It was a whole community, and a sets of communities could find reasons to interact with that content, and they did. And from that, relationships were grown, connections were made, and you get C-level meetings by realizing, they were all just people, and they happened to be C-level people. But yeah, it's
Eric,
beyond.
You said earlier, Eric, that it's not just about personal posts; it's about blending those as part of your content plan.
Yeah.
And I think that the important thing that people need to hear is that when you have spent your entire time on LinkedIn going, here's a brochure, here's a brochure, here's a brochure, here's a brochure. I've just bought a new guitar. Here's a brochure, here's a brochure. That's not blending them together. So understanding what people love about that post about the guitar, and then making some of that into the work post is so important. And often
Totally.
people don't get that actually what's special about your what you do for a career is the relationship you have with what you do for a career. I had a fantastic first meeting with a client, and it was really exciting to see them throw caution to the winds and start. That's an interesting post about work. What isn't an interesting post about work is we've got 6 things that we offer our clients: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And typically clients get A, B, C, D, E, and F when they do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, because people don't care. And I think that often people, the wider social user base, find it very difficult to reconcile those two things, don't they? Humanizing, which I think was one of the words you used, humanizing the business post and doing the personal post is crucial. Simply saying, here's a personal post, here's a business post, here's a business post, here's a personal post, here's a business post. Actually, you just polarize your audience. You get loads of engagement on the personal post and nothing at all on the business post, because people don't want to read your brochure.
And people are also clever, as you said. We're getting people, the general population of the world, with so many people that are on social media now, are getting to the point where they realize where they're being led a merry dance. And they are being very selective now. So unless we get that mix right, I find that hilarious, that whole here's a brochure, here's a picture of my new guitar, brochure for 6 months. Here's me and my daughter playing in the garden. Here's another brochure. I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I'd love to see that in a cartoon strip, one of these.
But we do see that, don't we, with clients that we work with. Whilst they're finding their feet, you can look at their posting history, and you can see that there's been an endless stream of stuff that nobody cares about. And when you go down a level, here's something that I've shared about the business, and they've got 3 likes on it, and then you see who's liked it, and it's 3 people that they work with at the business. So it's had 0 visibility in the useful part of the world. And then they've done this personal post, and it's had 100 likes, and it's been seen by 15,000 people. And then they go back to the old way, which has 3 likes from people that they work with. And often there's this period of acclimatization, isn't there, about how can I put me, the USP for me and my network, how can I put me into these posts, even though the posts are about what I do rather than who I am?
I love that. I love that. How do I put me into that? And I wanted to do a piece of content about branding today. It was in my plan. I wanted to do something around branding, and I thought that it was going to be around the fact that I bought some new Doc Marten boots. So I could have put I got a picture of, so I got some Doc Marten boots today. Love Doc Martens, and I could have put that out. But instead, because of the way that we work, I told a story which was quite embarrassing, about my relationship with these Doc Marten boots and what it meant to me. People anchored into that story because the story became about the embarrassing thing, and the whole post is about branding, not Brandon, branding. The whole post is about branding and how brands have imprinted themselves on our daily lives. But I've anchored it in a very embarrassing situation for me, which was cringeworthy. Cringeworthy. It was cringeworthy.
What are those?
What are those? Sergeant
Everybody's got a
Pepper's.
story like that. Everybody's got a story like that.
Yeah, exactly. It was so awful, and but people have anchored into that part of the story and said, "Oh God, someone said, I was asking for Adidas for Christmas, and I got Littlewood Zephyr 5 stripes," and and all these people are saying, a lady's just commented saying that my husband tells a story about how he really wanted a Diesel T-shirt for Christmas, and his mum went down to the local market and got one that said Chisel on it. But written like a knockoff, written like Diesel, but it said Chisel, like Giorgio Amarani jeans and things like that.
Tommy Hilfiger.
Oh,
Tommy Hilfiger, yeah. Johnny Hilfiger.
Oh boy.
That's brought back painful memories of junior high school.
Yeah.
Dulce and banana.
I used to wear Buster Brown while my friends, everyone had like Nikes. I had
Don't
Buster
ever admit
Browns.
that. Don't ever admit that.
Well,
Never admit that.
You know, the trainer coach in me wants to like make sure that we re-emphasize for anyone that's watching it that all this is funny and it's personal and all this, but I really think it always comes down to a plan and a strategy and implementing it, because personal posts are great when they're a part of a plan. They're just kind of fun when they're haphazard and you get a little shot of, dopamine because all of a sudden you're popular for a day or for a few hours or whatever it is. Your notifications go through the roof and you get all excited. But putting this into a business plan that has more of a personal approach to it, so you don't have to, figuratively be in that suit all the time. His stuff is amazingly powerful and fun and social. And, somebody was saying earlier, I forget who it was, that, they had their first meeting with somebody. I had a first meeting with some people yesterday that I've never met in my life. And for like the first 10 minutes, we were talking about things and, they were cussing about stuff. They're like, "Oh, I feel comfortable around you that I could just cuss like this." I'm like, "Yeah, go for it." And then we got to a point and they said, "Okay, we got to get serious now and then record this because HR is going to want to make sure that we did business stuff through, and what we talked about." And man, social's just fun and it's fun business. And I think for all of us, it's growing, thriving businesses. Sorry, that was a little bit of the coach trainer and a little part of the motivator in me. Sorry, my inner Tony Robbins was coming out.
yeah, but you're right. You're right. It's easy when you, I guess what I want to say is because I've been in this position, you look at someone's, or, they might look at even one of our posts and they see a personal post and we've been saying this the whole time. They think, well, if I just do a personal post, I'm going to get the same result. There is a lot more that's going on than might be apparent if you're just looking at this one post. There is strategy, there is tactics, there is authenticity with purpose, right? Those things are not mutually exclusive. You can have an objective and be authentic.
Often it assists both.
Yeah.
How can that possibly be an
And
hour
use storytelling.
chat? How can that be an hour? It feels like a few minutes.
It's having fun, you see.
Having
Yeah,
fun.
time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
On that bombshell.
I think that's a wrap, isn't it?
I think it is.
You mean when that big lull hit and nobody knew what to say? That's probably a good indicator.
What I felt was I learned something here today. I learned from you guys something that will help me to be better in my social activities. So I hope people out there who are watching also learned.
Yeah,
I've got more notes from today's conversation than most weeks. I agree with you, Linwood.
Great comments. Great comments today.
Yeah, amazing comments, right?
Really good, really good. Thank you, Robert, Rufus, Nick, Natalie, and Gary.
Yeah,
Cool.
and Rufus, welcome. Rufus is a local guy with a pretty significant company that we've been chatting for a while. I've been inviting him, and I'm glad to see he came.
Cool. Welcome, Rufus.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Have a great
thanks,
weekend.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks so much,
Happy
guys.
Friday, yeah.
Hold on, that's it. Incoming from Natalie.
Oh yeah,
Thanks so much, Natalie.
Thank you.
yeah,
Great
Thanks,
wine.
Natalie.
Great wine. About that.
yeah.
That's
Bye,
nice.
Natalie. Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.